Hi everyone, welcome back to my blog. We're doing a bit of a different one today. I don't do very many video entries. Usually I just stick to my usual write-ups. But today I'm going to be answering some of the questions that I've recently been asked. And I thought that speaking is just sometimes a lot easier. Although I find blogging helps me to get my views across and share my opinions and my stories, sometimes it's just a lot easier to speak. So here we are. So, backstory of this video. I recently uploaded a TikTok onto my account and it was in honour of Dwarfism Awareness Month and it went viral. And from that I got so many questions, some of which I've tried to answer on TikTok. But if you've got TikTok, you will know that TikTok only allows you 60 seconds to do a video, and some questions are just impossible to answer in 60 seconds. So I'm gonna put them all together now, but if you haven't seen the video that I uploaded, I will insert a clip here.
Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep.
So that was the video, and I think last time I checked it's had over 500,000 views, which is crazy because I had a really small account, so I really didn't expect it to go that big. But obviously it's October, it's Dwarfism Awareness Month, so I'm glad that it has, and I'm glad that it's opened up a conversation and the questions that I'm gonna answer today. So I've got 10 questions that I've selected from questions I've been sent over the last few weeks of Dwarfism Awareness Month. Some of them I've touched on before, some of them I haven't really spoken about before, so this is kind of new to me, of new topics to be talking about and kind of opening up a little bit more. But I think it's really important. October especially is Dwarfism Awareness Month, and like I've always said in my blog, if I can share my experiences and my journey of growing up with dwarfism and it educates or brings comfort to one person, then I feel like it's worth putting myself out there for. So let's get started. Okay, question 1. What is your condition called and what does it mean? So that's a good one to start with. I have achondroplasia, which is the most common form of dwarfism. As some of you may or may not know, there are over 200 types of dwarfism. So I have the most common, and my dwarfism is short-limb dwarfism. So achondroplasia basically means that my torso, so when I'm sat up, there's no one to compare myself to, but when I'm sat up, I'm quite often the same height as someone without dwarfism. It's just my legs and my arms which are shorter, which cause me to have dwarfism and be of restricted growth. So most common type and short-limb dwarfism, to sum it up in a nutshell. Okay, number 2. What was it like growing up being the only little person in your family, and would you have preferred your siblings or family members to be small too? Okay, so if you don't know, I am the only little person in my family. Both my parents are of average height, and as are all of my other family members. 80% of people with dwarfism are actually born to people of average height, so even though my family didn't know it at the time, their case wasn't rare. 80% of people with dwarfism are born into families like mine. Would I have preferred my family to be small? I think growing up in an average height family, whilst it came with its challenges and a lot of uncertainties, because we didn't really know what we were facing. We didn't really have anyone to compare ourselves to. My mum didn't really have much knowledge to begin with when she had me, because they knew no one else with the condition. So of course it had its challenges. So for that reason, I think, okay, maybe could it have been a little bit easier on her if there had been someone else? But I think actually growing up in an average height family was a blessing, in the sense of I just did what everyone else did, and My family never wrapped me up in cotton wool. I was always, as a child, encouraged to take part in everything. If there was a sports club, I was in it. If there was a dance club, I was in it. If there was a show, I was in it. I was just a bubbly, energetic child who grew up alongside my average height cousins, aspiring to be them. You know, they were my role models. We grew up together. We did the same things. We enjoyed the same things. So, whilst yes, it had its challenges, and I think some days I would have loved for someone else to be able to have comforted me and to be able to say, oh yeah, you know, like, I know how you feel, or I experienced this too. But now that I'm older, I'm actually very grateful for being in an average height family, in the sense of it eliminated I didn't know fear, because to me, I just did what everyone else did. So it was definitely a blessing. Question 3. What is your dream job, and do you ever worry you won't be able to do it because of your size? I don't actually have a dream job. I have had many jobs over since I was 16. I've always been in the childcare and youth work industry. So I started off as a nursery worker after I got my diploma from college. So I was a nursery practitioner, which I loved. I've been a play worker, a seasonal holiday club worker, a project leader, a guide leader, a youth worker. I'm now a communications officer, which I love. I've always known, I think my dream has always been to work with young people, and has always been to have a role that has an impact. I never wanted to sit in an office. I never wanted to work in retail or be in the supermarket. I always wanted to be out in the community, working with people, sharing experiences. And I think I always wanted to be, if you ask me what my dream job was, it's to be the adult that I needed when I was younger. I've always wanted to be the person that can help someone through a challenging time or through a struggle. So I don't think I have a dream job. I'm very blessed to have had the jobs that I've had. I'm very blessed to have the job that I have now, and I wouldn't change it. Did I ever worry that I wouldn't be able to do it because of my size? If you asked me when I was 16, I'd probably say yes. I think when I left school especially, I think every teenager worries about if they're going to be good enough, if they're going to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. And obviously for me, I had that extra hurdle of knowing that I was different, and knowing that things that my friends could do and qualities that my friends had came a little bit more difficult to me. So I think when I was 16, 17, yes, I definitely did worry that I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do. But actually now, I've learned that whatever I want to do in the future, I will be able to achieve it. Will it be harder? Possibly. There may be a few extra hurdles to jump, which there has been over the years. But actually, for as long as you have a strong mind, a good work ethic, and a good heart, you can get just about anywhere, regardless of your physical makeup, regardless of your physical ability. It's the person that you are, especially in the industry that I'm in. That's what counts. So, do I worry that I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do? Not really. Not anymore. Because I know that even if a challenge does come along, I'll work twice as hard to achieve what I want. So, no. I don't worry about that anymore. Do you prefer people to know you're small before you meet them? Would you tell a job interview, for example, about your height to save any awkwardness? This is so... In an ideal world, yes, I would prefer people to know, because there's always a fear of awkwardness. Intentional or not intentional, there's always, on so many occasions, has been that initial meet, and it's not even done with ignorance or with nastiness. It's just pure, I don't think people can help it, but you walk in, you meet someone for the first time, and you can see their initial glance. You can see their initial, oh, okay, this isn't what I was expecting. Some cases has been ignorance, but 9 times out of 10, it isn't. It's just pure, oh, okay, this is new. It's curiosity. So when I was young, when I was a teen, young adult especially, I'd always prefer people to know. I hated going into any situation where people didn't know. Job interviews, I've never externally applied for a job. So any job that I've got, I've always been within the organisation first. So my job now, for example, I was a student before then getting employed to be a comms officer, and prior to being a student, I knew the organisation. I had worked alongside them before, so there was never a fear with that because we knew each other, we had a very good relationship, so that nerve was completely eliminated. My job prior to that, I do remember being nervous and going in the first time thinking, do they know? Has anyone told them? Should I have told them first? But actually, the awkwardness, I'd say, lasts for like a few seconds, and then it's gone, and it's more me than them, I think. So would I tell them? Would I prefer them to know? Yes. Would I stress the point in making sure that they know? No, because if anything, if they don't know, I kind of see it now as it's just another opportunity to educate. If they didn't know before they met me, then hopefully they'd know a little bit more after. But yeah, there has been times growing up that's had those awkward moments of, they don't know. But now it's just go with the flow. Is your house adapted, and is there anything you can't reach yourself? So none of my houses are adapted. That sounds like I've got a lot of houses. I don't. I have my family house back home in Bristol, and I have my flat where I stay now for university. None of the two are adapted. I've never lived in a house that's adapted, mainly because I've always lived with my family who are average height, and I don't think my 6-foot stepdad would be very happy if I knocked out the kitchen to build a kitchen of my size. So there is a level of consideration that actually adapting our house wouldn't be practical because there's 2 of them and 1 of me. So most things you can get away with, especially now that I'm older, most things are definitely easily solved with a footstool or just asking for help. So I remember when I first started getting left home by myself, my parents would go out for the weekend or they'd go out for a day out, and I remember coming downstairs and the kitchen would just be completely rearranged. They'd bring everything from the top shelf down. It looked like we were moving house because everything from the top shelf would be moved down. There'd be food laid out on the table because they knew I couldn't reach the cupboards in the top shelf of the fridge. And yeah, it's little things like that, habits that you just build yourself, and you get into a flow. And I think the same with the flat where I live now. I share with 3 other people. Can I reach everything myself? No, but you don't tend to notice because you just learn, I think, what is doable and what isn't. So my flatmates know that if we're cooking and there's something off the top shelf, I can't reach it, and it's very rarely now that I have to ask. Most of the time they notice before I even do, and they'll get something down without me even saying it. Looking forward to the future, would I adapt my house? Possibly. If I had a family and they were also of short stature, then maybe I would. But I think because I've grown up in an average height family, I have been so used to not having adaptations that I kind of just find my way around them. And yeah, at the moment, don't see a need for them. Sometimes when my flatmates go out, or when my parents used to go out, there'd be the odd thing that we'd always forget to do before they left, and that would be a burden of the day. But apart from that, most things you can work your way around. I love this question. What are some ways you'd advise parents to explain dwarfism to their children, for example, if we saw you on the street? So, I'd always say that it has to come from the parents, and there is no right or wrong way to explain to a child. You know your child best, you know how they best learn, and I always get people who are always scared to say the wrong thing, and you can't. There's very few ways that I know that you could say the wrong thing. Personally, if I ever was going to advise someone, I'd say people don't always grow the same. People don't always look the same. I remember my mum telling me that I had special bones. So when I was 5 years old and I started asking questions, I remember my mum saying, well, you don't grow as big as your cousins because you've got special bones. And to me, that was how I learned about it. I think with children, always make it relatable. So just as two average height people may not be the same height or may not look the same, bring that into it. So, well, mummy isn't as tall as daddy, and that's okay. Something that they can relate to and something that they can kind of help process for them. But yeah, special bones, people growing differently, and if anything, ask us. If you did see me out on the street, I'd be more than happy for you to, either you or your child, to come up and ask me. That would never be a concern of mine. So if you are really uncomfortable with answering that question yourself, ask the person if they would mind explaining for you. And 9 times out of 10, I can almost guarantee that they wouldn't at all. Next question, which was, would you ever get offended if someone asked you about your size whilst out in public? Does it ever catch you off guard, and do you ever get embarrassed? So, no, I would never get offended. I would much rather you ask me and the child get an insight to dwarfism, rather than quite often if parents get embarrassed, what I've witnessed is they'll just pull their child away, or they'll tell their child shh, or they will say to them, no, don't say that, don't look at her, don't speak to her, because they're so embarrassed of saying the wrong thing that they'd rather say nothing at all. I would much rather that any day you ask and approach me and give me the opportunity to educate your child, but also educate you for the questions that they will ask when you go home or later on in their life, or if they see someone else with a difference. So no, I would never get offended. Does it ever catch me off guard? Yes, all the time. There's been I have been asked about my size in the most randomest of places. In nursery, in the middle of doing a nappy change when I used to work at a nursery. I've been asked in the middle of a supermarket. I've been asked in the middle of a school assembly in front of 200 kids. I've been asked in a lift. I've been asked in a dressing room before. It definitely does catch you off guard, especially because, you know, to me and my friends and my family, it's not something we think about. Like, despite having the condition, it's not front of my mind every day. So sometimes, yes, it does catch me off guard. But do I ever feel embarrassed? No, not really. Maybe for a split second I would. I mean, speaking about it in front of hundreds of people, or people I don't necessarily know, or in a scenario that I haven't been in before, it's more nerves than embarrassment, I think. But that feeling lasts for 1-2 minutes. But the effect of speaking to someone and answering their question I know will have a ripple effect, because what I say to them or don't say to them could influence how they grow up to be as a person, how they see people, how they witness diversity, how they accept diversity. So I would much rather deal with the feeling of, oh, I wasn't expecting that, or oh gosh, what do I say? I'd much rather overcome that myself and be able to answer questions rather than a child walk away from me and not know. Do you think people of average height take things for granted, i.e. things that you can't do? I don't think people take it for granted. I think this is hard, but I think there's not enough education about some of the challenges that little people face. So to an extent, maybe people do take it for granted, but not necessarily maliciously, but purely because they don't know that actually those things aren't possible to other people. I wrote a blog 4 or 5 months ago now called No One Tells You About the Little Things, and it is so true in the sense of, I think when people think about dwarfism, they think about the short size, the medical problems, the possible bullying, the driving, the house adaptations, but they don't think about small things like being able to carry your rucksack to school, or being able to reach a ticket machine at the train station, or being able to open a jar or a can or a bottle that your hands are too small for, or being able to get on a hotel bed, little things like that, which when you Google dwarfism, I don't think any of those things come up in the descriptions or the about box. So, do people take things for granted? Yes, maybe they do. I think everyone does to an extent. We always take for granted things that we know are always there and that we never have to worry about. But I think it's just a case of educating people that actually some of those things which you do with ease and you do without giving a second thought are actually things that take up so much of my mentality, so much of my day thinking about how I'm going to overcome them or how I'm going to get round overcoming them. So yeah, maybe you do, but I think it's about education, not about being malicious. What age did you start blogging, and have you always been open about your size? So I wrote my first blog, I think, when I was 14, and it wasn't really a blog. I never intended it to be a blog. It just started as a Microsoft document and me literally writing about how I felt. And it was called Growing Up Without Being Able to Grow, Forever a Small Fish in a Big Pond. And I remember just writing it almost like a diary, and kind of in time I started sharing it with people, and people kind of like, this is really good, like you should write some more. And I think especially at that time, 14, 15, I wasn't very vocal. I wasn't very as confident as I am now in communication and speaking to people. So for me, writing was my way of expressing. People were really positive about it and I got a lot of good feedback. So from there, I kind of thought, actually, you know what, this might be something that I want to do. So at the age of 16, then I made my first blog and Facebook page, which was called My Life, My World, before then kind of turning it at the age of 18. I started to grow my platform a little bit more. That's when Life Being Little came about. I decided to maybe take it a little bit more seriously and kind of open up not just my blog, but my Instagram page, my Twitter. They kind of all started to link, and yeah, I kind of just found the more that I was sharing, the more, yes, negative responses do come along, of course they do, but the more positivity I was getting, and I kind of found that as much as I was out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there, the responses I was getting, and knowing that actually people were getting educated and reassurance from the stuff that I was putting out, that was kind of, yeah, to think that all started from one Microsoft document that I wrote purely as a diary entry, really. Have I always been open about my size? No, definitely not. You know, at first, that diary entry, I never in a million years thought it would go anywhere. It started getting shared with the odd friend, the family. I then put it onto Facebook to kind of allow close people to read it, and from there kind of started letting a few more people in at a time before getting the platform which I have now. But it's taken a lot, and it's taken a lot of self-growth, self-understanding, self-acceptance, I think, more than anything, to be able to be in that position to feel comfortable sharing. And, you know, some days things are hard to talk about. Some days I go to write a blog and nothing comes out. Some things I still experience today which I haven't spoken about yet, and I don't know if I will or if I'll ever want to speak about it, but that comes in time. And yeah, so that's kind of where it all started, really. Started at the age of 14 and just grew from there. And last one, can you drive and have you thought about it yet? So I personally cannot drive, but little people can drive. For me, I will require pedal extensions in order to be able to drive a manual car. Have I thought about it yet? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of, I think every 17-year-old, when they become legally able to drive, you think of driving. I think, but for me, knowing that extra challenges lay in the way have kind of stopped me jumping straight into it. But also, my life at the moment, I don't have a need to drive, so I've never been desperate to do it. It is something that does scare me. I mean, it's going to be new. It's another one of those things which I know I will perhaps find a little bit more challenging, or I will have different challenges that come with it compared to my friends and my family. But I also know so many people like me who have gone on to drive and who successfully drive and who are really good drivers. So I think it is in the back of my mind, but I'm happy with where I am at the moment. I'm in no great rush, and I know that when I do decide to take it on, it'll be a challenge, it'll be exciting, it'll be scary, but just like all of the other things, I will take it as it comes. And we are done. That is the questions that I picked up from my TikTok account. Thank you so much for watching. If there's any more, or if there's anything that I haven't answered fully or to make sense, please leave them in the comments, or always feel free to DM me. Thank you so much for all the support on Life Being Little. The views are going up. We've gained so many followers. So thank you for joining the journey, and please keep sharing and helping us raise awareness, especially in October, which is Dwarfism Awareness Month. And I will see you very soon.